My brother broke my ribs. Mom whispered, "Stay quiet, he has a future." But my doctor didn't blink. She saw the bruises, looked at me, and said, "You're safe now." Then she picked up the phone. I was curled up on the bathroom floor, gasping through broken ribs, when I heard my mother say through the door, "Keep quiet, you'll ruin his future." That was the night I realized I had no family, just witnesses to my pain who refused to see it. But my doctor did, and she wasn't quiet. I would really appreciate it. It helps more than you know. My name is Rachel Moore. I'm 27 years old, and I live in Indianapolis, Indiana, where I work as an elementary school teacher. I've always been the quiet one in my family. The good one. I stayed out of fights, I followed the rules, and I helped out whenever my parents asked, which was often. I thought that if I was good enough, invisible enough, and helpful enough, I would eventually earn their love. But none of that mattered the night my younger brother, Zach, lost control, and they blamed me instead. Our family had always revolved around Zach. He was the sun, and the rest of us were just small, forgotten planets caught in his orbit. He was 24, an aspiring athlete with a golden arm and a temper that could flash like lightning. My parents, Deborah and Martin Moore, saw him as their legacy. They poured all their hopes, their money, and their love into him. Everything he did was celebrated. Everything he broke was excused. I had moved back into their house 6 months earlier after my apartment lease ended. I told myself it was to save money for a down payment on my own place. But the truth is, I think a small part of me was still hoping to find the home I never had. It was a foolish hope. The house wasn't a home. It was a shrine to Zach's ego and my parents' denial. His trophies lined the mantelpiece where pictures of me used to be. His special high-protein diet filled the fridge while I ate leftovers. My father talked about his game stats at dinner. My mother fretted over his training schedule. I was just the person who made sure the laundry was done and the dishes were clean. I saw the warning signs. I wasn't blind. I saw the ways Zach's moods could sour a room in seconds. I saw the dents in his bedroom wall. A story he told about a stray baseball that I knew was a lie. I saw the fear in his girlfriend's eyes before she stopped coming around. I saw it all, and I said nothing. Because in my family, silence was loyalty. Speaking up was betrayal. And I was a loyal daughter. The night it happened was a Saturday. Zach had a big league basketball game, one of the last before the draft scouts started making their final decisions. He lost. He came home hours later, the smell of stale beer clinging to him like a cheap coat. His face was dark, his movements heavy and angry. I was in the kitchen, wiping down the counters. I was just trying to be invisible, to stay out of his warpath. "What are you looking at?" he snarled, throwing his gym bag on the floor. "Nothing, Zach. I was just cleaning up," I said, my voice small. He opened the fridge, grabbed a beer, and slammed the door shut. "This whole season is a joke. The coach is an idiot. I tried to be helpful. I tried to be the good sister. It was just one game. You'll get them next time." I even managed a small, weak smile. It's not like it's the end of the world. That was my mistake. The joke, as small and harmless as it was the match that lit the fuse. His eyes, which were already clouded with anger, went black. "What did you say?" he whispered. It was a terrifying whisper, low and dangerous. "Nothing. I didn't get to finish." He moved faster than I could process. He grabbed the front of my shirt, his knuckles digging into my collarbone. He was so much bigger than me, so much stronger. He dragged me across the small kitchen space and slammed me, hard, into the edge of the granite countertop. The air left my lungs in a single, painful burst. A sharp, searing pain shot through my side. I crumpled to the floor, my vision tunneling. I remember the cold tile against my cheek. I remember trying to pull air into lungs that wouldn't work. Then came the kick. He drew his leg back and kicked me in the side, right where I had hit the counter. A sickening crack echoed in the quiet room, a sound I felt deep in my bones. Then nothing. I blacked out. When I came to, the world was a haze of pain. Every breath was a fresh wave of agony. I was still on the kitchen floor. My mother was kneeling beside me, but she wasn't looking at my face. She was looking at the door, listening for my father. "Rachel," she whispered, her voice urgent and cold. "Your father is coming. You need to get up." I couldn't move. I could only gasp. I can't breathe." Her eyes finally met mine, and there was no sympathy in them. There was only fear. Fear for him. "Listen to me," she said, her voice dropping lower. "You tripped. You fell and hit the counter. You hear me? Say you tripped. You know how sensitive he is. This could ruin his draft chances. He broke me, and she was worried about his chances." I managed to crawl, inch by painful inch, from the kitchen to the small downstairs bathroom. I locked the door and slid down to the floor, my body shaking with shock and pain. I could hear them whispering outside. My father's low rumble, my mother's panicked pleading. And Zach? I heard him go upstairs and slam his bedroom door. He went to bed. That's when I heard her voice, clear through the wood of the door. Keep quiet, my mother said, her words a final twist of the knife. You'll ruin his future. The next morning, the pain was a living thing inside me. I couldn't stand up straight. I couldn't take a deep breath. My father, Martin, looked at me with a face like stone. There was no, "Are you okay?" There was no, "What happened?" There was only a cold, hard command. Get in the car. I'm taking you to the urgent care clinic. On the drive, he didn't look at me once. He just stared straight ahead at the road. You fell down the stairs, he said. It wasn't a question. It was an order. That's what you're going to tell them. Your mother is a mess. Zach is beside himself with worry about you. We don't need any more drama. Promise me, Rachel. I was so beaten down, so trained to please, that I just nodded. A single, tearless nod. What was one more lie? At the clinic, the fluorescent lights made my headache worse. A nurse took my vitals and asked what happened. I recited the line my father gave me. I fell down the stairs. The words tasted like poison. Then the doctor came in. She had kind eyes and a calm, steady presence. Her name tag read Dr. Melissa Trent. She looked at my chart, then at me. She gently pressed on my side, and I couldn't stop the cry of pain that escaped my lips. I need to get an X-ray, she said softly. But first, I want you to be honest with me. The pattern of bruising here, it doesn't look like a fall. She leaned in a little closer, her voice dropping. Rachel, did someone do this to you? I froze. My father was in the waiting room, probably tapping his foot impatiently, expecting me to come out with a prescription for painkillers and a story he could control. For my entire life, my family had looked at me, but never seen me. They saw a quiet daughter, a convenient helper, a potential problem to be managed. But this woman, this stranger, looked at me with genuine concern. She saw my pain, tears I didn't know I had started to well up in my eyes. The dam I had built inside me began to crack. I can't, I stammered, thinking of my father's anger, my mother's pleading, Zach's future. Dr. Trent didn't push. She just nodded. Okay. After the X-rays, she came back into the room and closed the door. She put the films up on the lightbox. I could see the dark, jagged lines on the image. You have 2 broken ribs and one that's fractured, she said, her tone professional but gentle. This kind of injury requires a significant amount of force, a direct impact. She quietly took photos of my bruised side with a clinical camera. Then she turned back to me, her gaze unwavering. I'm going to ask you one more time, Rachel. I'm a mandated reporter. That means if I believe a crime has been committed, especially one of abuse, I am legally required to report it. Did someone do this to you? The whole world seemed to stop. It was me against them. A lifetime of being quiet versus this one chance to be heard. I looked at the X-ray of my own broken bones, the evidence of what he did. I looked at this doctor who was willing to stand up for me when my own parents wouldn't. In a voice that was barely a whisper, I told the truth. My brother. The words hung in the air, small but heavy. I immediately started to cry, begging her not to do anything. Please don't. You don't understand. It will tear my family apart. It will ruin his life. His life. Dr. Trent said, her voice firm but not unkind. Rachel, he broke your ribs. What about your life? I cannot and I will not let this go. My responsibility is to you, my patient. And just like that, the choice was no longer mine. She made the call. She notified Child Protective Services because I was living in the home where the abuse occurred, and they, in turn, notified law enforcement. By the time my father drove me home, the world had changed. A police car was parked in our driveway. Zach was brought in for questioning. The moment I walked through the door, the betrayal from my family was instant and absolute. My mother looked at me with pure hatred. What did you do? She shrieked. My father grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in. I told you to keep your mouth shut, he hissed, his face inches from mine. You just destroyed your brother's future. I hope you're happy, but I wasn't listening anymore. The fog of fear and obligation was finally starting to lift. While they were yelling, while they were focusing all their energy on protecting their violent son, I walked past them. I went in my room, pulled out the suitcase I had never fully unpacked, and started putting my clothes in it. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know where I would go. I just knew I couldn't stay there another second. I had already packed my bags. The first few weeks were a blur. Dr. Trent was my anchor. She gave me the number for a local women's shelter network. They didn't have space in their main building, but they helped me find a small, subsidized apartment on the other side of town. It was tiny and mostly empty, but it was safe. It was mine. The first thing I did was file a restraining order against Zach. Standing in the courthouse, my hands shaking as I filled out the paperwork, was the hardest and most liberating thing I had ever done. My family didn't stop. The calls and texts were relentless. My mother left tearful voicemails about how I was tearing the family apart. My father sent texts threatening to cut me off completely, as if he hadn't already done that years ago. They tried everything: guilt, shame, threats, even fake apologies from Zach that they probably typed themselves. I blocked their numbers. All of them. Dr. Trent connected me with a pro bono lawyer, a fierce woman named Sarah who specialized in domestic violence cases. Sarah helped me sue Zach not just for my hospital expenses, but for emotional damages as well. The lawsuit and the police report got back to his basketball league. His contract was suspended indefinitely pending the investigation. His golden future was suddenly covered in mud he had thrown himself. I started therapy. I talked about everything. The broken ribs, yes, but also the lifetime of small cuts, the constant feeling of being second best, the deep hollow ache of being emotionally abandoned by the people who were supposed to love me most. Slowly, I started to heal. I put pictures up in my new apartment. I bought a small plant. I started sleeping through the night without waking up in a cold sweat. Months later, I saw a posting for a local community grant. It was for new programs aimed at helping at-risk youth. An idea sparked in my mind. An idea born from my own pain. I spent weeks writing a proposal for an after-school program for young girls from abusive or neglectful homes. A safe space where they could be heard, where they could learn that their voices matter. I got the grant. I named the program, The Quiet Should Speak. The final blow came about a year after the assault. My program was a success. We were holding a small community fundraising event at a local library. I was at the podium, sharing a bit about our mission when the back doors of the auditorium burst open. It was Zach. He looked rough. He hadn't gotten a new contract. The lawsuit had cost him. He looked thinner, but his eyes held the same old rage. "You!" he yelled, pointing at me. The room fell silent. "You did this. You ruined my life. All because of a stupid fall." My heart hammered against my ribs. The same ribs he had broken. The old Rachel would have shrunk. She would have hidden. She would have wanted the floor to swallow her whole. But I wasn't the old Rachel anymore. I calmly placed my note cards on the podium. I stepped down from the stage and walked slowly toward the center aisle so everyone could see me clearly. I stood there, in the quiet of the auditorium, and looked directly at him. Then, I turned to the crowd of supporters, parents, and young girls my program was helping. My voice didn't shake. It was clear and steady. "This," I said, my gaze sweeping across the stunned faces, "is the man who broke my ribs." I let the words sink in. Then I delivered the final truth. "And this is the family who told me to stay quiet." The silence in that auditorium was deafening. It was absolute. It was more powerful than his yelling, more damning than any verdict. In that silence, everyone understood. Security guards moved in and calmly escorted a sputtering, defeated Zach out of the building. I never went back to my family. I never sought an apology or an explanation. I didn't need one. Zach's life wasn't ruined by me. It was ruined by his own actions. My parents didn't lose a daughter. They threw one away. I found my peace, not in getting revenge, but in speaking my truth. I didn't need their apologies to be whole. I had my voice, my work, my new life. And, for the first time, that was more than